Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the meeting today. I'm Robert Harris. I will be chairing today's meeting. I'd like to introduce other members of the CDAC panel. There's Peter Williams, Nina Power, and Tony Brzezinski. Our witness today is Livia Tossici-Bolt. Thank you, Livia, very much for joining us this morning and giving us your time. We really appreciate that.
Good
I'd like to
morning.
begin, Livia, if you could tell us what happened to you, a summary of the events that you experienced. That would be very helpful. Thank you.
Okay. I am a leader of the Bournemouth 40 Days for Life vigils, and I've been a leader since 2019. We have, before the imposition of the buffer zone in Bournemouth, we praying, and we've been praying and offering help to women accessing the BPAS abortion facility in Bournemouth. According to the code of practice and of the 40 Days for Life vigil, so a very gentle, compassionate presence. Maximum 2-3 volunteers, etc. So very respectful and peaceful and compassionate. With the buffer zones, they changed a bit the approach, because we could not be by the clinic, the BPAS clinic anymore. I did challenge the legality of Bournemouth Christchurch Pool Council for imposing this buffer zone in a statutory review conducted with Christian Concern. And but then, as a leader of the vigil, I immediately brought the vigil outside the buffer zone, so to be legal and trying to reach out in a legal way that was permitted to us. And it was clear from the start that even this was so not accepted, fully accepted, because I was approached a week after roughly the imposition of the buffer zone by council officers outside the perimeter of the buffer zone. And that's my first, well, actually second encounter with these council officers. I was praying, and this relates to October, I'll tell you the date, October 2022. The 20th of October, so just a week after the imposition of the buffer zone. I was praying outside with another volunteer, Amabel Clark, and we were just praying, holding an image of Our Lady, a small image, and just praying, nothing, not even trying to reach out with signage or anything. And there we were approached by two council community safety officers. So this was not the police, but this authority created by the council. And we were asked to move away because we were causing distress, or I can't remember exact word they used. And to the BIPA staff, to the school. This was nearby. There is a school where we were praying. So we refused. My friend, they were quite insistent, and my friend had to ask to phone her solicitors to ascertain our rights. This was my first encounter. And was outside the buffer zone. The actions that brought me to court I was judged last October, I think, and found guilty. Oh, I don't remember now the date. I was found guilty. No, I was trialed in this land. and found guilty for breaching the terms of the PSPO, in particular the last term of the PSPO, for standing inside the buffer zone. This time is inside the buffer zone, with the sign reading "Here to talk if you want." And with this sign, I was convinced I was not in breach of any of the PSPO prohibitions. And I met this community safety officer on two days, on the 2nd and 3rd of March 2023. And there I was asked to go away, because they gave me different reasons each one of the 2 days, which I contested and refused to do so. And this resulted I was tried in a court trial, because the last prohibitions of the PSPO zone is to refuse to leave when requested by an officer. And then finally I had another encounter on November 2023, again with 3 community safety officers, and again outside the buffer zone. And there I was on my own, praying and holding a sign. I call it a solidarity sign here. Pregnant, question mark, do you need help, question mark. It's the sign that we always used during the 40 Days for Life campaigns, when this was before the buffer zone was set. And I was again accused to be inside the buffer zone. I was arguing that we were discussing this. The argument was taking place outside the buffer zone, and refused to obey their order to move further away. And this resulted in a complaint from my part to the council, and I think this is the summary for the moment.
Thank you very much, Livia. That's really helpful to get that summary. Can we begin by just understanding some background? Because I think many people who will be listening to this may not understand the purpose or the full motivation that you have in terms of what you do. So when there are 2 strands to this. When you pray on some occasions, and on other occasions you hold up a sign "Here to talk if you want to." Can I just focus on the prayer? So when you're outside the clinic and you're praying with your colleagues, what's your reason for choosing that site and praying there? Can you just explain that to
Yes.
us?
So you are referring to the activities before the buffer zone was imposed. And so we were praying outside the clinic. It's a cul-de-sac, and there is a green area where we used to meet and pray. As I said, in 2 people minimum, maximum 3, 4. Sometimes it could be when the clinic was in the opening times. And the reason for praying there is for the help of the Holy Spirit to reach out to the hearts of these moms and couples. They are there sometimes in a state of confusion or despair, or very agitated. And so we were praying for the Holy Spirit to reach the heart, to give them hope and courage, and to see that there are other solutions other than the terminal solution of the abortion. We were praying also for the staff of the clinic that could see what they were doing. It was clear it's in front of their eyes, but maybe they couldn't see with the eyes of the heart. And we were praying also for the babies that were going to be killed in that day or during the week. That they could meet our Creator and be in peace in heaven. And just because we thought that, well, nobody should die without prayer. And so we were there to pray for these human beings who are going to die. And the reason is to be there is because that's a place of Calvary. So we wanted to be there.
Thank you for that explanation. And the other strand to my question, when you hold up the sign here to talk if you want to, had you displayed that sign on previous occasions, or was it just that one occasion when you were challenged?
So yes, only on that occasion. This sign is after the PSPO. And I went inside the buffer zone on my own initiative. So as a private citizen, I must stress, not as a leader of the 40 Days for Life. So nothing to do with the 40 Days for Life vigil. I was a private citizen who has spent there many days of my life, who has got to love the area, and the area, I mean, the people live in the area. And I thought the PSPO was, okay, prohibiting me to reach out effectively to women accessing the clinic, but I could be there to connect with other people. There was no prohibition for me to do that. And the offer was offer to talk, simply to talk. And this also I thought it was particularly poignant after all the suffering or the lockdowns and the pandemic forced many people into isolation. And I particularly knew some vulnerable people in the area, some elderly people, men and women. And that told to us so many times in the past. I mean, there was a connection with them, and I thought often about them during the lockdowns and so on, and I wanted to reconnect with them, and that's which I managed, by the way. So it was good, even those 2 days, 2 hours every day, more or less. But yeah, Providence granted my wish.
So have I understood you correctly? You had displayed that sign on previous occasions.
No.
You
That
hadn't.
was
That was the first
created
time.
by me. Just I
Right.
like science, and I thought this is the one to connect with people
Right.
independently from the issue of away from the issue of abortion.
Right. So it's the only time you displayed the sign. So can I ask you, on that occasion when you displayed the sign, you tell us in your evidence that you sent to us that you didn't discuss abortion.
Mm. Mm.
Given that you were in proximity to the clinic, although you tell us you were outside the boundaries of the PSPO, the Public Space Protection Order,
Sorry.
what?
With that sign, I was inside the PSPO.
Oh, right.
With
Yes, no, that
here
is
to
correct. No,
talk if you
you
want, I
reminded me.
was
That's correct.
inside
Yes.
the PSPO.
Yeah.
I was in the same place where I spent many hours and days of my life in the past, and I wanted to be
No, no.
there again.
Thanks for that clarification. So you were inside. So what was the purpose of being inside the buffer zone with an invitation to talk? You say that you didn't talk about abortion, but what would that suggest about inviting the public to speak or anyone passing by who might potentially be one of the clinic users? What was your expectation about the subjects that would be discussed?
I had no expectations. That's the beauty of this, well, the spot, that place, is that always been a place of interactions. Also in the past, when we were there clearly for reach out to people women and couples in the pregnancy crisis. Even in the past, we had interactions with completely unrelated. And those interactions, I was convinced, because they had nothing to do with abortions, were still permissible. And so that's my sign, a new sign, completely different, never used before. And as I said, in the past, I had many interactions and also in those 2 hours, in those 2 days, the few hours, I had interactions with passerbys and locals, and because it's an area of, say, pedestrian traffic. It's a cul-de-sac, and there is a ramp connecting that area, part of the town where the BPAS facility is, which is a purely residential area. This ramp connects them with a busy, bustling town, with shops, churches, facilities, restaurants, and university. So it's a station. It's always been an area of pedestrian traffic and plenty of opportunities to interact with people. And probably because I always had signs, that's a bit my style. People stopped interacting to talk to me in the past on issues completely unrelated. And I thought I can continue this. It's not part of the prohibitions of the PSPO.
And just very briefly, what constituted the discussions on that day when you invited the public to speak to you? Do you remember what the
I was
discussions were
asking
about?
this from the judge during the trial. So I had talked to students of their university studies. I talked to women walking the dogs, and I talked to a particular woman that I know to be vulnerable, and she's a dear lady, a bit auntie, but also always looking for a conversation with me and or other and another volunteer in the past. And I had talks with men, talking about their families, their driving license for trucks, or also talks about children and expectation. Even the invitation for cup of tea, which is strange. This cup of tea keeps coming with me, because also when I was there before the PSPO, people were offering cup of teas because they saw me standing there for a long time, and people, I remember in particular one said, "I hope to see you again next week," and because twice I was had interaction with these CSAs, of community safety accredited officers, twice in those 2 days, and I decided to stop. But really, I would have loved to be there the following week. And also I had a very interesting interaction with the person that I think was the one who reported me on the first day. And the accusation the first day from this officer was that somebody felt harassed or intimidated by my presence. And this man came to me towards the end of my shift saying, "Oh, you cannot be here. You should talk to some officers. And I was just saying, look, I just been conversing with these officers, and at that moment they were coming back to check. It was the end of my shift. These two officers were coming back to check that I was going away as stated to them. So he went to talk to them and then came back to talk to me. I waited for him at that point because he was talking to me, just left to see the officer and came back to me. So I waited for him, and he said, you cannot be here. And I was challenging him, please, let's go and read together these PSPO terms. And they were affixed on the lamppost, and tell me what I'm breaching. And so this said, am I protesting? Am I harassing? Am I filming? Am I doing this? And I was doing nothing of the sort. And this man insisted, yes, but I want to know your views on abortion. And I said, we cannot talk about this in this location. It's prohibited. um, but look, I'm at the end of my shift, and if you want, we can go outside and have a chat where we can regain our freedom of speech. and it was again with any other of my interlocutors. It wasn't what I wanted to talk about. It was what they wanted to talk about. The subject was completely their choice. So I started to ask, please tell me what you think. That's what is dear to you. Let's talk what you think. And so this is the type of conversation that took place outside the buffer zone. The judge asked if I was sure that none of my interlocutor was a client of BPAS. And I thought, well, not based on this conversation, I cannot see as anyone could have possibly been a client. But certainly, the possibility was there. Anybody could have approached me, also a BPAS staff, also a client. I was there for everybody, and anybody could have told to me anything they wanted. And of course, if it was something prohibited, I would point it out to them, but nobody did. Well, I said this man was insisting, and we conducted the conversation aside.
Thank you. You said that someone you believe you knew the person who reported you, although you're not certain, I think. But was that on the day that you displayed the sign inviting the public to speak to you? Is that the day you're
Yes,
talking about?
yes.
On the
And
other
I
occasion,
believe it's him because the video was played again in the trial. And at first I didn't recognize him, but then I recognized, well, I did recognize him. And yeah, it's the same man who asked me my opinions on one abortion.
Mm. There are 4 days that are cited in this chronology. There's the
Yeah.
2nd and the 3rd of March 2023, the 22nd of October and the 2nd of November 2023. So on those occasions, other than the one that you've just cited, when you think you know the person who reported you, do you have any knowledge about the kind of people who may have reported you on the previous occasions, or were they based on complaints on the previous occasions? And do you have any understanding of what prompted
Mm.
the community safety accredited officers, to use the long form of
Mm-hmm.
their name, the CSAS officers, perhaps we can call them that?
Jesus, yeah, the
Do you
last
know
asset.
what prompted those other um,
So
complaints, or were they complaints indeed?
yes,
Do you know anything
so
about that?
the two complaints before and after, the ones relating to the trial, the two complaints that took place outside the buffer zones. I raised, on both occasions, I raised a formal complaint with the council, and asking if, by challenging that this was maybe discrimination against my religion, my faith, and the council always said, oh, we need to respond. So they've been complained, but I don't know who raised them and on what grounds. So this is the two occasions outside the buffer zone. Apparently, the officer responded to a complaint. And this is, I mean, it's a sort of indication of the effect, this chilling effect of these buffer zones, where the population feels that we are doing something wrong, we are criminals and worth to be reported. The population become informers. And because these prohibitions, it's not their fault, the fault of citizens. No, it's this narrative that's been created around this pro-life activity, trying to show it as something detrimental. That's the buzzword now is used. But in this prohibition, they mixed positive actions like prayer, offering help, reaching out, with criminal actions, which are harassment and intimidation. And so this in the psyche of the society has created lots of confusion. And many people that, not all, I must say, not all, you still have a lot of support in the community. But even so, many people, they see us as a nasty presence to be reported, criminal presence. And from the interactions I have even now outside the buffer zone, some people may think that we are judgmental, condemning, and it's beautiful when the conversation goes a bit further. There is time to discuss things, and they live with a different, completely different perspective, that we are really there trying to help out. We recognize the trauma of abortion. That's I think there are many reactions that are motivated by the anger of the people who have gone through to fall in the abortion trap. I would say it's a trap because people are made to believe they are not. They got no alternatives. So when the community understands that we are there to offer a genuine alternative, we are there to offer help for people suffering from post-abortion trauma, and that we can help. There are structures and entities that can help people. It was interesting. I mean, during this last campaign, having this type of conversation outside always the buffer zone as part of the 40 Days for Life, that many people say, "Oh, we have been for counseling, but it's useless. They only ask you question. They don't provide you any direction, any answer." And they say, "Oh, who did you have the counsel with?" BPAS. And of course, they cannot provide the answers. They got no answers. It's a different type of counseling. The one is offered by a pro-life organizations. And that's all interesting, beautiful conversation. That's the richness of this 40 Days for Life ministry, I would say. And I got lost track. Sorry, where we started. Oh yes,
No, that's okay.
this perception of the people seen us as criminals to be reported to the authorities, because this PSPO prohibitions, they've done a lot of mixing of horrible activity, criminal activities, harassment, intimidation have always been criminal. They didn't need a PSPO to be recognized as criminal activities. And they mixed it up with Christian and solidarity, activities of solidarity among human beings. Okay, sorry, finish.
Thank you very much for that. On one of the days when you had the encounters with the CSAS officers, I think one of them had remembered you from a previous meeting, previous conversation. What I'm interested to know is on the 4 days that we have information about, 2 days in March 2023 and October and November 2023, had those CSAS officers, were they all different on those occasions, on those 4 occasions, or were some, the same
Some
faces?
overlap.
Do you remember?
Yes, there is certainly on my first occasion, and this, as I say, was purely praying with a companion outside the buffer zone a week later after it was imposed. I was approached by two community safety officers. One of them was the one who also was present on both days when I was inside the buffer zone, holding my sign, here to talk if you want. So one of them knew me from before. And
Right.
he was the one who asked myself and my companion to move away on that occasion as well. And we refused because we were already outside the buffer zone. And he was the one who then made a long phone call. I don't know who, probably to the council. I don't know to who, maybe to see how he could proceed. But anyway, that's, I don't, but one of them definitely knew me. The
Mm,
others, I don't think so.
no. I just have a few more questions to start with. With regards to these 4 dates, we've seen video footage for the November episode, but just for the sake of those listening and just for our information as well, how would you personally describe the manner, the way these officers spoke to you on those occasions? What would be your descriptions?
So on that occasion, November 2033, it was after, it was again outside the buffer zone, and it was my last encounter with them after the sign, the discussion around the sign, here to talk if you want. So on that occasion, I was outside the buffer zone with the sign, the 40 days for life vigil sign, pregnant question mark, need help question mark, and a telephone number. I was on my own. It was a stormy day, and so my companion just couldn't make it. And I mean, to be approached by 3 officers in wearing black, I don't know, it was already a bit intimidating. Just because, I don't know, you see three officers coming to you, and I was on my own. But anyway, that's it's a personal impression. But and they alighted from a police car, and then the police car drove away. The manner, at first it seems courteous, what are you doing here? But then it becomes so insistent and repeating, no, you were not, you were outside, you just move in. So this accusation of somehow telling fibs, telling lies. And so, and now, and again, the insistence, you had to move away from here. At that point, whatever was my initial position that I maintained, I was already outside the buffer zone, but they say, oh, you moved now as we arrived. But whatever that position, initial position was, we were outside the buffer zone, having discussion outside the buffer zone, and they kept insisting and showing on the map And I said, and they could not even read the map, in my opinion. So we would just say, no, it's not where you point. We are on this other place of this long road. And there are two sections of this road. One is inside the buffer zone and one is outside the buffer zone. So I would say, look, we are not on the section inside the buffer zone. We are here on the map. And then I was pointing also on the area. And so they seemed then to be baffled and they were looking at the area. And one of them was always silent and he positioned himself in a just outside the buffer zone. The other two were alternated, insisting. I was asking, where are we now? Why? I didn't get a clear answer, just kept repeating. Um, we are instructing you to move away. And then sort of again, we were going a bit in circles and then they decided, okay, we will report to the council. So my impression was it was not pleasant, but I sort of read from my complaint to the council that this type of interrogation are normal, can be lengthy, and I think the law allows even even physical. So I didn't have any of those. So I'm as a sort of citizen who never had interactions with the police or authorities, I found it a bit intimidating. But that's yeah, it's my personal impression. And it too insistent, and the inability to have a reason explained. They kept repeating the same thing, and that I found it a bit unnerving.
Thank you. During any of these episodes, were you ever threatened with or actually issued with a fixed penalty notice? And if so, can you just give us some details about that?
So when I was inside the buffer zone with the sign here to talk if you want, and this is in March 2023, I was told that I would receive a fixed penalty notice. On the last occasion in November, in my memory, I seem to remember they did the same. But I'll have to, I'm not quite sure about this. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. But certainly when I was inside the buffer zone, yes, there was the promise.
And did you pay the fixed penalty notice? Did you pay that?
So no, I didn't, and that's why I went to court. Inside the buffer zone, with my sign here to talk if you want, when we interact again at length with these officers, I asked them, please tell me what I'm breaching, what I'm doing wrong. And if you explain to me, I consider myself a free-thinking citizen and capable of reason. And so give me a reason. Explain to me what I'm doing wrong. I'm law-abiding citizens and I will leave. So I did ask, I remember the first day and then the second day. Well, the first day I said, let's read together. And they, please read it to me because I had my hands busy holding the sign. Read to me these prohibitions. Let's go through them one by one. So starting with the first one, protesting, namely engaging in act of approval, disapproval, or attempting approval, disapproval. So, am I doing this? No. Am I harassing or intimidating. No. I'm taking video, filming videos. No, I'm holding the video. I'm what is the word? No, interjecting is interfering. No, they were called the first day on the basis of a complaint I was harassing, intimidating. I said, do you think I'm harassing, intimidating? No. So they could not tell me on that day why they were asking me to go away. They kept saying, oh, somebody felt harassed, intimidated. But am I doing that? That was my challenge. If I'm doing that, I will go away. But am I doing that? And so, but then they will say, okay, but you are breaching the last term of the PSPO, which is refusing to leave. I said, well, okay, I will leave, provided you give me an explanation. And then we were going round, around in circles like that. And then the second day, one of the officers was the same, and then there was a lady officer who I never met before. And again, we started this conversation. I will leave. Tell me what I'm doing wrong, what I'm breaching the PSPO, and I will leave. And the second day, I think they were called by BIPAS staff with the accusation was protesting. And again, they asked me what kind of conversation I had. I said, look, the argument is completely chosen by the person approaching me. So I didn't have any discussions on abortion, but I do not intend to. And I had no intention whatsoever of engaging on this. So I was not doing it either. So again, I said, you tell me what I'm breaching and I will leave. And they could not tell me. So I refused to leave. And then I refused to pay the fixed penalty notice. And that's why I had the trial. And the judgment of the trial is, yeah, I was guilty under this provision of refusing to leave. And I stayed there without a reasonable excuse. So I was asking for a reasonable explanation why I had to leave, and now I'm saying I'm guilty to stay there because I didn't have a reasonable excuse. So here we are. It goes always in circles, in my opinion, in my head. I don't know if it is. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Livia. I have further questions, but I'm going to pause them for the moment. I'd like to ask other members of the panel to put forward their questions. Can I begin by asking Nina? Nina, would you like to ask your questions? Thank you very much.
Sure, thank you, Robert, and good morning, Livia. At this point, I think it's a kind of more laying out the territory of the case, because clearly there's a kind of overlap of various things here, one of which is freedom of expression, another which would be freedom of thought, freedom of conscience, and clearly your signs and your relation geographically to the exclusion area were taking into account the reality of the situation. And obviously we can't relitigate, we can't challenge the law at the moment, we can't do any of that. You know, it is what it is, right, in that sense. And clearly you were trying to respond to the change in circumstances around the PSPO. And I'm just wondering if you could speak a little bit about how you see a connection in your mind between your freedom of belief and freedom of conscience, your Christian faith, and the things that follow from that around your pro-life position, and freedom of expression, freedom of speech more broadly understood, because obviously they're slightly different in the law, but they're clearly part of the same umbrella. So I'm just wondering, is there a Christian dimension to your defense of freedom of your position on freedom of speech and vice versa? So just how you see the connection, if there is one in your mind. Yeah, thanks.
Yes, yeah, that's very very interesting. I think if I wasn't a Christian and feel so much for other people, would I bother to go and talk to people in in an area in the first place? Sometimes that's a comment I received from antagonists passerby. Oh, well, have you got anything better to do? Maybe yes, there are so many other more pleasant things to do in life, but I think it's my Christian belief that brings me to connect when I see there is so much need for connection. So freedom of expression somehow is related to this. I mean, even in the past, this is before the PSPO was imposed. The fact to try to connect with people and women and couples, it was again exercising in a way a freedom of expression, because I felt they needed information and I felt they had the right to receive this information. This comes also a bit my background as a clinical scientist. To arrive to a choice, you have to be informed. And always I felt there was not enough information. So that's where the freedom of expression comes in. They had the right, these women have the right to receive information, to know more. And okay, my desire to reach out, to exercise this freedom of expression in these both ways, certainly is motivated by Christian solidarity. Maybe if I was an atheist, I would do the same, because the principle here is of the dignity of the human being is maybe is in the natural law, and certainly religion reinforced it. So I cannot see deeply in my mind to see if I can separate completely. I don't think they are intimately interconnected, my Christian belief to reach out and the right to freedom of speech and the right to give information and for these women and couples to receive information.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it's interesting. There's also, just as a side note, a long philosophical tradition of people engaging in dialogue, including on the street and so on, which is also part of the Western tradition.
Yeah.
But I don't think philosophers are a protected characteristic, unfortunately. Yeah, so just a quick follow-up question, really, and I don't want to overlap too much with what Robert might ask you, but just in terms of your relation to your faith and support that in the wake of the particularly perhaps the guilty verdict, which I believe you're appealing,
Yeah.
how have you felt that relation has been since the verdict, in terms of any personal support or institutional support? I mean, I know you're being defended by various sort of legal bodies and institutional bodies and so on. But yeah, how has your faith, in your mind, been supported by others with your beliefs since the verdict?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
sorry, just to confirm, you are appealing the.
Yes, I'm
Yeah.
appealing. I'm appealing. And certainly the faith support I felt it during the trial, it was beautiful. And also after the trial, because I received overwhelming support, in fact. And thanks also to the judge who imposed a a fine of £20,000, which I would have found very hard to pay myself. but the sum was collected through a crowdfunding, and the support was overwhelming. And it's interesting, is Christian support, faith support, but also philosophical support. Because I mean, this freedom of speech is here is in jeopardy, and so people feel that. But faith support, it was beautiful because it brought even people of different denominations together, and the wish of being together, of reconciliation, and being together, and run the good run or the fight, the fight. Mm.
Okay, excellent. Just my final clarificatory question on the crowdfunding for the fine. So the fine of 20,000 has been paid through crowdfunding. Is that right?
Yes.
But you're appealing the verdict
Yes.
nevertheless. So you didn't refuse to pay the court fine.
No, I didn't. That's the advice, the legal advice.
Okay.
And I'm feeling very privileged. I'm very in good hands from legally, supported by ADF, the Alliance for the Defense of Freedom. And they give me peace of mind and the strength to focus on the principles. And continue to fight for the principles for our country.
Excellent. Okay, thank you, Livia. That's it from me for now.
Thank you very much, Nina. Over to Tony. Tony,
Hey,
thank
Livia.
you.
Hi.
It's a real joy to meet you. I've got to say, absolutely wonderful, and I really love your accent as well. It's fantastic. I can
I
listen
hope you
to it.
understand me.
I know I can listen to it all day long. It's marvelous, and thank you so much for your courage and for what you're doing. I just wanted to clarify something. First of all, you said you're appealing. Can I ask on what grounds are you allowed to say on what grounds you're appealing?
I wouldn't like to discuss it.
Fine. No, it's absolutely fine. I was just curious because I mean, there's so many things about this, of course. I mean, first of all, the anti-Christian nature. I mean, I want to talk to you about you, the implications of you being there as a Christian, as opposed to just being there holding a sign saying want to talk, right? Because I'm assuming. I mean, first of all, everyone knows these laws are anti-Christian. Yeah, because the only people that turn up and protest against the killing of innocent children are Christians. No one else is going to bother doing that.
Yeah,
So, of course, to say you
refuse
can't.
to see this. I mean,
Yeah.
on the statutory review and the judicial review, the court refused to see this.
Yeah. But in practice, can they come up with a a list of non-Christians who've been there? Maybe they can find one or two, but generally speaking, of course, it's only Christians who come out and speak out against these things. Fair enough, whatever. But as Nina said, quite rightly, that the law is the law as it is, and this panel isn't here to question the law, even though I would if I had the chance. And similarly about abortion laws per se, we're not here about that. The thing in the back of my mind is how much when the officers came to talk to you and when you were finally arrested, how much of that was based on the fact that you were holding a sign saying, do you want to talk inside the exclusion zone, which, as you seem to have pointed out, doesn't seem to be contrary to the restrictive orders. Holding a sign saying, would you like, I mean, you and I know you were there because if there hadn't been an abortion clinic there, you probably wouldn't be there, right? So you and I mean, that's the short and the long of it. But in terms of when they arrested you, I'm curious, how much do you think they knew about you and they knew who you were, and they were letting that knowledge of your previous life and actions influence their assumption about you and what you were doing? Is that something you're able to answer?
Okay, so first of all, must clarify, I was never arrested. I was fined.
Okay, sorry,
This community safety officer got no power of arrest.
Yeah. So you appeared in court
Yeah, so
because you refused to pay the fine. Yeah.
yes, yes. These community safety officers, they didn't know me.
Yeah.
They were never being employed by the council to patrol the buffer zone, the area before the buffer zone. In the past, maybe we had the occasional police car coming in if, to check presumably that our presence was peaceful and so on. I always inform the police anyway, and always send them our code of statement of peace and code of good practice, etc. So these officers, one of them knew me from a previous interaction, but they state that they had a sort of, oh yes, what I discovered in the trial, they created matrix. um, when the buffer zone was imposed, they started to monitor the area, and so they start to create a matrix and put joining dots. And I was known by the BIPA staff, and they BIPA staff consider brands me as a protester, and so they refer to me as a protester, and so that was sufficient to justify their belief that I was breaching the PSPO. In fact, the verdict of the trial, and the judge tried to ascertain if they had a reasonable belief, and that was based on what BIPA said, on the previous interaction, which was outside the buffer zone, and they will say, oh, we had numerous interactions, but any interaction before this March 2023, it was outside the buffer zone, and it was only a major one. And another time where I crossed over with them, and again, I was leaving, so I was completely anonymous citizen, and then they approached me and said, oh, somebody called us saying that somebody leafleting or something. So they were with imposition of the buffer zone. They started to create this matrix of the people, and that was in the matrix.
Yeah. Okay, so that's really interesting. So it seems to be that so I'm guessing if an ordinary person, so not that you're not an ordinary person, but somebody without a background, if just some random character, some student who was doing some research on do people talk to people in the street, who happened to be inside that buffer zone and said, with a sign saying, come and talk if you want to, right? Do you think that student would have been arrested, or not arrested, or fined, or told to move on if they were just doing some random research? I'm just curious who comes up and talks when somebody holds a sign in the streets.
Yeah.
Would that students have been fined or asked to move on, in your opinion?
I think we'll have to ask the BIPA staff.
Yeah, right. Because the point I'm getting at is,
they're saying I was facing them. I wasn't, to be true, I was in the same position I've always been in the past. But it's across the road on the green area, and I was known to them. I thought it was a new face, what it would have happened.
But this again, I think this is part of what I'm trying to get into is, well, actually, what you were doing on the day contrary, or did they read into that because they know you and they know about you, and so they thought, well, obviously we know what she's doing. In which case, the people issuing you with the penalty notice, there's an awful lot of subjectivity and assuming your thoughts. Which again is like, is that where we want to go as a country? That some random council employee can look at you and assume your thoughts and decide to fine you because of what they think you're thinking.
Yeah, and
And
despite
that
me,
seems a little bit beyond what we want to achieve as a country to me.
yeah, yes, certainly. And I
Mm.
was reassuring them, so I have no intention. So I even spelled out that I had no intention. I spelled out my thoughts. And
Yeah.
it was interesting because after what happened to Adam Smith-Connor, I went there. I said, okay, I cannot, I'm a Christian to tell the truth. I send the
Yeah.
truth. So
Yeah.
I empty completely myself. I used to pray there. I didn't
Yeah.
pray. I didn't
Yeah.
pray. I completely empty my thought, my
Yeah.
head, my thing. Just be here and let's
Wow.
see what
Right.
people will bring.
Yeah.
And I didn't even pray. I can say that.
Right. I mean, that in itself is amazing. So it's not as if you didn't tell them you were praying. I mean, that's bad enough that they can issue a notice because you were praying, thinking in your head. Um, Irrespective of what you were praying about, the fact that you were, I mean, it's just like it's beyond descriptionally, it's so absurd. But you weren't even doing that. So that's
Yeah,
really interesting. So
I played the absurdity of it all.
yeah. So literally, you weren't. I mean, you were just stood there, holding a sign, asking people if they wanted to talk, and you weren't even willing to engage on discussion about abortion, as
Yeah,
you've demonstrated.
yeah,
So, I mean, that in itself, for me, says, well, okay, they were discriminating against you because they know you're a Christian and they assume they know what you believe, and maybe they've got good reason to correctly assume what you believe because of your previous actions. But nevertheless, at that time, they were saying, well, because we know what you believe, you can't even do the actions that ordinary people would do because we know you're a Christian. So for me, that feels and looks and sounds like discrimination simply because of your faith, really, which is
yeah, probably did.
quite something. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that's been really useful. That's all I wanted to clarify. And I'm very grateful and privileged for the opportunity even to talk to you briefly. Thank you very much, Livia.
The privilege is mine. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tony. Peter, please put forward your questions to Livia. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much, Livia, for attending here. It's great to talk to you and to hear your story. It does seem to me that there are three occasions. So obviously there are three occasions that we are already discussing that you've discussed. Two where you would say you were outside the PSPO, and one where you're inside. I think the inside one is the most controversial because all you're doing is saying, as has been discussed by my colleagues here quite amply, just here to talk, and that should be something which anybody is free to do. And you were particularly targeted, presumably because the police knew of you from the past. And then they go on, of course, outside the buffer zone, where you show. I think in November you have a sign saying "pregnant, worried, need help," and you have a telephone number and some pictures and that sort of thing. And they allege that you were inside, you were just right of the sign on that particular road, on Axcombe Road, and you said you were always outside the buffer zone.
Yeah.
So we've already discussed the controversial bit. I think that the less that's all controversial, but the particular bit where their version of the story is markedly different from yours, which is whether you're inside or outside. That's just a case of he said, she said. So there's very little to interrogate with regards to that beyond the evidence that we've already seen. So I can only invite you, because everyone has asked all the questions I would have otherwise asked, to comment as to whether you think the existence of PSPOs, censorship zones, buffer zones, whatever we want to call them, whether these are inherently discriminatory. You've said, of course, already that the reasoning for your actions is informed by your faith as well as your philosophical principles, which are fundamentally tied together. Would you say that the existence of these zones is discriminatory against those who wish to act not in a way that is harassing or that is intimidatory, but simply want to offer help, to pray, and the like?
Yes, certainly it is. I feel it is discriminatory. And to to be first branded as people who harass and intimidate in order to get to that point, to justify the PSPO, the PSPO order. And then to say, oh, your activity are maybe not criminal, but are detrimental. And so that's that use of this word, detrimental, which is so subjective and so vague. I mean, harassment, intimidation are crimes that can be persecuted with the law, but they had no a shred of evidence that were ever committed. And then move now to this, use them to justify the PSPO. I mean, there was a consultation, public consultation, because the council needed the democratic approval of citizens. They were entirely based on the necessity of this PSPO, asking citizens, are you in agreement? And the wording were used, oh, do we need to protect women from harassment, intimidation? Of course, everybody would agree with that. I mean, it's okay. And then, but that was only to right to the point. So being subjected to these lies and maneuvers, it's been, but then we are at this point where it's detrimental, and what is detrimental? And from my experience, when we were able to reach out to people, the help was not detrimental. It was gladly accepted. And the only detriment was brought to the profits of the abortion industry, because for every
Has there been any videographic or otherwise evidence provided of harassment or intimidation by anti-abortion, you could call protesters or activists or anything like that, let's say in the 5 years prior to the PSPO being imposed in Bournemouth?
So no videos. There's never been. What happened is that the council was receiving complaints from BPAS, and but they had nothing lawful, robust enough to justify a PSPO. So the suggestion was to gather complaints. So BPAS, in the space of a few years, gathered maybe 300 complaints, which I read them all. And it was very interesting reading them, because about between a sixth or seventh of these complaints were in occasion where nobody was there, no protesters, no anti-abortion protester was there, but just people say, oh, I can well imagine how stressful it would be, how anxious it would make me or my partner to find protesters. So that made me think, BPAS is phoning each one of these people, saying, beware, there are horrible people outside that will try to interfere with you, interact with. I don't know what they were saying, but people were coming from these comments, were coming to the place with the thought of having to face horrible people. And in fact, I know from when we were there, because some of the partners, they came to talk to us, why you're doing this, why you're judgmental, why you're this and the other. So I knew that they were, we knew what they were told from BPAS before attending the clinic.
But at
So,
any point, has there been any presentation within these complaints of photographic, videographic, or any other objective, as opposed to hearsay evidence?
yes, so they had
harassment or anything like that from
no that, but the last times, as in the process of justifying this PSPO, we had the sister supporters that were called by BPAS every time we were there. and they were
Just to clarify, Sister Supporters are a pro-abortion activist group that protest.
Well, they said they're feminists, they're not pro-abortion or anything, but they came up with pink jackets, my body, my choice, I'm pro-choice and all this stuff. They are quite visible signage, let's say wearing signage or holding signage, but it was interesting, it was a reactive presence. We were, maybe I was there with the volunteers about 20 minutes and they were arriving. And with all the volunteers, we discussed this and we recommended and it was followed to maintain a Christ-like attitude, never react, offer the other cheek.
Would you say that the actions by the pro-abortion protesters, Sister Supporter and others, have been, or to you or to others who are also anti-abortion protesters, would you say that those have been harassing, intimidatory?
So they were doing, they were sort of maintaining distance, but filming, taking pictures, coming close to take pictures. And those pictures were sent as evidence to the council.
But nothing that would have been harassment or intimidation.
No, not at all.
So it's possible then for pro-life and pro-choice, quote unquote, groups to engage in the kind of activity they've been engaging in without.
So that was a strong point used by the council to justify the PSPO. So risk assessment, we have two groups, antagonist groups, and we don't want the women assessing the facility to be disturbed by these protesters.
Even though there was not any objective evidence of harassment and intimidation, even towards the groups between themselves.
No. It's only this photographic evidence of our presence that was sent to the council.
So you say that PSPOs are in any way necessary to prevent harassment and intimidation, given that no evidence has been produced of harassment and intimidation, either to women going into this or between the various different activist groups?
Yes, and I think that was the result of a parliamentary inquiry, I don't know how to call it, before when it was first talk about the national buffer zone, and the report found there was no need because there was no evidence of harassment, intimidation.
So in the absence of such evidence, would such zones be considered, should they be considered draconian and authoritarian?
I would say so. I mean, I think it's these public space protection orders were devised for antisocial behavior, were they? And here we are now in place, and when they are challenged, they talk of this European rights in conflict. The right of freedom of conscience, religion, freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, in contrast with the right to privacy and self-determination, the Article 8, as if, so and because they are all not absolute, right, are, that is the terminology, balanced rights. They put them in conflict one against the other. And so all these judicial reviews, I concluded there is no doubt that the rights of freedom of assembly, freedom of speech, freedom of religion have been trampled. There is no doubt. But we have to put this in balanced against the right of women to privacy and self-determination. And the last of these rights in the balancing act is weighs more. But again, this right, who is nobody has harassed or intimidated these women and try to find to breach their privacy. There is nobody has ever attacked the privacy of these women. But
and if they would, presumably the police have the powers to deal with individual cases of harassment and intimidation.
Certainly, certainly. But
one final question then: would you say that the concentration on privacy and self-determination here, given that there is no appreciable evidence of harassment and intimidation, particularly going against the women who are about to enter these facilities, and notwithstanding the fact that being an unplanned pregnancy must be a very difficult situation to be in, and one can imagine that there's a degree of vulnerability that a woman would suffer under such circumstances, would you say that there is a condescension towards women in presuming that they cannot access a medical facility or an abortion facility in this case without feeling so intimidated by people offering them help and praying, such that they would be unable to go through with the procedure that they are intending to go through? Is there would you say, a degree of condescension towards women that they are so unable or so weak or so lacking autonomy that they would not be able to do that?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's an offense to women as well, because certainly we know from testimonies they are in a very vulnerable state. But many of them, they welcome a presence that is not the abortion stuff. It has been welcomed, and I mean, this is the past statutory reviews of the healing center. I mean, the woman who started the process was a woman who benefited from a pro-life presence. So, and then there is the narrative. That's the thing. This picture of this narrative that is being constructed of women harassed, intimidated, but that is based on something that is convenient for the abortion industry, while in fact women, and I have beautiful testimonies of women say, I wish you were here when I walked into this building 10 years ago when I was young, and I believed I had no choice. So the present is welcome as well. So there may be women who they don't want to see a pro-life presence. There may be women who benefit from this pro-life presence. And at the moment, yeah, the narrative has been that, oh, women need to be left in peace, like, which is, or they can find information online. They don't need to have a presence there. No, the presence there is needed, because we know from testimonies and from experience, women and couples are looking up to the last moment for a sign, hoping to find something.
I note that the Be Here For Me campaign is a group of women who have benefited, and their testimonies are accessible publicly through that as well. So
and these women have been ignored, completely ignored by the courts and by the system. Yeah.
It does. Would you agree? This is the final question. Would you agree that there is a privileging of one form of testimony, which is largely collected by pro-abortion organizations and the abortion industry itself, when it comes to the appreciation of the available evidence over and against women who have benefited from these kind of vigils and from this kind of quote unquote pro-life activity? Would you agree with that?
Yes, certainly. This is what is brought into Parliament, from what or in the House of the Lords, and for sure there must have been instances. I don't think in Bournemouth, but instances of women be shouted at, which is absolutely to be condemned, and that's horrible. but the overwhelming evidence of women who have benefited from it. And I received it a lot from this crowdfunding, a lot of messages in this sense, that women who have benefited have been ignored. They don't exist. They are
Inconvenient, perhaps.
yeah, inconvenience for the narrative. Yeah, undesired.
Well, thank you very much again, Livia, for your testimony to us today. I really appreciate it, and that's all my questions.
Oh, thank you,
Thank you, Peter.
Peter.
Livia, I'd like to pick up on one or two things that you mentioned. You said that on one occasion, at least one occasion, there was a presence of feminists by the clinic. Was this just one occasion, or did you
No,
see
this
them on?
was before the on the run to the PSPO. I think the council needed evidence, and that was I think it was the same technique used in healing. I think in other parts before the national buffer zone to have these two groups, let's say, two protesters on the same spot. So it was a good technique because it allowed the council to do a risk assessment, which was not possible before, and that was, I think, one of the thing pivotal for the imposition of the PSPO order, to protect women from this group of protesters that were, well, colliding, but there was no physical collision, but we had, and there was absolutely no reaction from us. We didn't take a picture of them, we didn't do it, but it was, on a 40 Days for Life campaign, it was maybe 2-3 weeks solid. Every time we were there, half an hour later, they were coming, and it was funny. I was maybe taking a break in the car, unseen, and I was see them leaving, and then I could go back and do my vigil in peace. But it was a reactive presence, yeah, and certainly called by BIPA, so that cannot be otherwise.
Once the PSPO was operating, did you ever see these feminist protesters outside the clinic? No.
No, they disappeared.
Okay. I just want to pick up also on some background questions. When you held up the sign, "Here to speak if you want," I understand from the evidence you submitted to us before this meeting today that you did this because during the COVID pandemic and the lockdowns, obviously a lot of people suffered a lot of loneliness, and you felt that this was an opportunity to enter into that space of the loneliness that people feel and to connect with people. Would that be correct?
Yes, yeah. As I said, during the years I was there, I got to know some locals, and I was particularly concerned with some people I consider to be vulnerable, including women, and that they were alone, and maybe not a strong characters.
And also, I think you very briefly mentioned that you contacted the police ahead of your presence outside near the clinic. Is that when you're standing there in the in the capacity of somebody connected to 40 Days for Life, as opposed to being, as you termed it, a private citizen?
So I don't remember now. Okay.
I think what my question is, when you're there in the capacity of a representative of 40 Days for Life, are you saying that you always notify the police ahead of that
Oh,
presence?
yes,
Right.
yes, always.
But when you're there not as a representative in 40 Days for Life, you don't contact the police. Would that be right?
No. That was my private initiative.
No.
I didn't feel I needed to contact the police. There was no reason to contact the police.
Right.
I thought it was.
So have there been any encounters with the police, any conversations? Have the police ever been present there and conversed with you in any
Yes,
context?
this was before the PSPO imposition. I would say more or less every vigil we had some visit from the police. Mostly just drove and went. In fact, for every vigil, when we used to do at the end of the 40 Days for Life, it usually fall on a Sunday, and the clinic is closed. Even now, it's closed. We used to do like sort of a vigil procession where all the volunteers took part, and I always notified the police of also these extra activities with a larger group. In the past, I remember having interaction with the police. Once I was on my own, and with a sign, pregnant, need help, and they were. Mostly they were fine, but once they arrived in a sort of riot van with the bulletproof jackets and the videos, and asking me to move away. And I refused at that time to give my name to the police. This was. I said, why you're asking my name? Or in case, I remember the answer, in case something happens, but nothing has happened, nothing will happen, so I'm not giving my name. But that was a strange, odd one. Otherwise, the police has always been very courteous with us, very just checking, and I do appreciate their presence because they could see we were fully peaceful and
And on that occasion, when they
compliant.
asked you, yes, sorry. And on that occasion, when they asked you for your name, was the PSPO in
No.
operation?
This was, I'm talking before the
Before,
yeah,
yes.
before
And
the
they didn't take it further when you refused to give your
No.
name.
Didn't,
Okay.
because I said, why do I give you my name? And in case something happened, I said, well, nothing.
I
I'm not a
understand,
criminal
yes.
before I commit the crime.
Yes.
And then it's very interesting because the very last day before the PSPO was put in place, I was praying with another volunteer, and I had to call the police because unfortunately I was a bit late, which I'm still very sorry to my lovely lady volunteer. And when I arrived, she was very younger person. She was very agitated, and they say a couple went in. They were very mouth free, swearing, and also menacing that if this man would come out, and if I hadn't gone, he would call his friends and do harm to me. So I said, okay, let's see what's happened. She went on the other side of the pavement. So I was on one pavement, she was on the opposite one of the road, and I saw this man coming out of this young lad coming out of the clinic and talking to her. She immediately took a few steps backwards, and then he took his phone and he was using his phone towards the end of the cul-de-sac, and she came to me and he said he's calling his friends. and he said they will do harm to us. So at that point, I called the police. And that's the only time in all my vigils, which the last day of the free zone, where I had to call the police. And the police eventually arrived. This man could not be seen outside, but he was inside at that time, back in the building. And the police, they came back to us saying, yes, he has admitted that. We have cautioned him, I think is the right word. And do you want to proceed with charges? And we said no. We said no. I feel this young couple arrived to the place in a very agitated state, thanks to BPAS. That's ultimately is they are behind all this this agitation. And that was,
Thank you.
as I said, the only time I had to call the police. Yeah.
Thank you, Livia. Thank you. I have a few questions about the events of October 2022, 22nd of October 2022. It is 2022, isn't it? Or 2023?
Yes.
Yeah.
2022, yeah.
Sorry, yeah,
That was the year that the PSPO was
yeah.
imposed.
So you were outside the buffer zone with another lady, and there was an encounter with the officers, the CSAS officers on that day. And you tell us in your evidence that you pre-submitted that you were both holding rosaries and an A5 sized image of the Virgin Mary, but there were no signs or images relating to abortion
No,
itself. Have I got
no.
that right?
Yeah, correct.
Yes.
So that was immediately on the aftermath of the PSPO imposition, and we decided, let's pray, only pray. Let's only pray. That was that day. Yes.
And I also understand that you were both praying, you use the word quite or quietly, is that
Yes.
right?
Yeah, you
Now,
always do. Yeah.
does quietly mean audible, slightly audible, or silent?
Audible
How would
to
you
each
describe it?
other,
Audible to each
but
other.
even I mean the volume even less than the one I'm talking to you now.
And I just want some clarity here. I know that you're saying that you say it was outside the buffer zone, but just have some curiosity here. Was it still during the hours of the PSPO operating, even though you said it was
Yes,
outside the
yeah,
buffer
yeah,
zone?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
I think I should. I didn't note the day of the week, but I think it was.
And the officers noted as one of the problems of your presence was the fact that you're close to a school, and they claimed that it might cause offence or distress to children, parents, and staff members.
Yes.
And you told them that there were none of those groups present at the time.
Yes.
So therefore it was a non-starter, as it were. Um, as far as you remember, I mean, was there any signage outside the school notifying the public about not loitering, anything of that character?
No, no. It's interesting you brought up this point. Now I remember the school was open, so BPAS was open as well. It was during the week, and in another occasion we were approached by a member of the public that said it was part of a school council, or I don't know if she was a parent and that is part of a school council. I'm not quite sure the role. And he said, this is a multi-faith school. And so you shouldn't be here. Well, multi-faith school, this is a Christian, is a faith. I can be here. It's completely paradoxical. But that's,
But
yeah.
but was there any signage? Presumably you don't remember any signage outside the school saying no loitering allowed. You don't recall
I
anything
don't
like
know.
that. No,
I
no, no.
don't think
Okay,
so, but
okay,
yeah.
no.
No.
And so you were asked to leave, and you refused to do so. And then following that episode, you tell us that you made a complaint to the council. Can
Mm-mm.
you tell us what came of that complaint?
Okay,
if anything?
nothing. Nothing. So the council said, okay, because I complained this is a religious persecution. I don't know, not in these terms, but I would say they are attacking our religion beliefs. And they said, no, they are responding to complaints from the public, and they have to respond and investigate, and they've been very courteous and blah, 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 blah. So nothing came out of it. No.
I see. I have a few questions also relating to the following incident on the 2nd of November 2023, when you also prayed outside the buffer zone, and you held up a sign, pregnant, question mark, need help, question mark. You very helpfully sent us some video footage of your interaction with the CSAS officers. Would you say that that footage contains all the conversation that happened on that occasion, or is there some that might have been missed out that wasn't recorded? Something of
Probably
relevance?
most of it, but probably not all of it. I'm not very good at with the phones, and in fact, at one point I thought, oh, I didn't press the right button, so I pressed again and interrupted the video. Luckily, he videoed most of it. But on that occasion, I asked also the council to provide their evidence from the body-worn video cameras that the officers always wear. And eventually I got the video one from one, which I think is not complete. And I cannot see from that any moment where we are outside the buffer zone, because the council said, oh, you were moving in and out. And there is no evidence again that when they arrived, I was inside this PSPO. I was hoping to see from the video, but the video starts later. It's missing the first part. So again, he will remain hearsay. They said that, I said that. But it's interesting from their written testimonies, each one of them say I was in a different little spot. There is an inconsistency between them. But anyway, thinking about these video footages, even in the trial, that's the most upsetting one. Okay, so in this November 2023, when I was outside, I only received one footage, and there were 3 officers. And I was insisting to have all 3 to see how they can justify that during the conversation we were in and out. But I received only one. And I asked many times, many emails over months and over a year, but never received the other 2. But more relevant is the offense, inverted commas, that brought me into trial when I was inside the buffer zone. Well, the body video footage seems to have been corrupted, and the only short clips, or the one it was convenient for them. That's, what can I say? It can happen, but there were 4 officers, and the videos over 2 days, two officers each day, and the videos are not available, or were not available. I don't know. I hoped with the appeal, maybe we can get the council to release that. I don't know. I don't know this.
We know from the video footage relating to November 2023, the 3 officers who approached you were male. On the other occasions in October 2023 and the 2 occasions in March 2023, were there any female officers, or?
So in most, all male, only on the 2nd day of March 2023, there was a female officer, one male and one female.
Okay. Just going back to this episode in November the 2nd, 2023, following that day, you contacted the council, and one of the things you raised was that you sought an apology. You wanted an apology for what happened. And I just want to read a tiny extract from the letter from a council representative. And she said, "I'm sorry that you found the situation distressing and felt harassed, as I know that you would not have been, sorry, as I know that would not have been the intention of the officers. I have made investigations into the concerns you raised, and I'm happy the officers were carrying out their duties in line with their role, and I believe we're dealing with the situation in a professional and courteous manner." I note that the language really falls short of an actual apology. I think she appears to be saying that she's sorry that you feel harassed, but doesn't sound like an apology. What's your take on
No,
this?
I feel I never received an apology. It wasn't an apology. It was more a defense of the conduct of the officers that they think it's appropriate. I mean, if anybody would use that way of talking, it would have been easily classified as intimidatory and harassing, but maybe I don't know how if it is normal for the police to act in that way. I don't know.
Just one last question relating to that November incident when you held up the sign. Did any member of the public or anyone entering the clinic approach you for conversation?
So you're referring now to November 2023 when I was
Correct.
outside?
That's right. You're
No,
there with another lady, and were you
no,
holding up a sign on that occasion? No, I
sorry,
think
the November, no,
November
okay,
the 2nd, 2023.
yes, I was alone.
I see. Oh, sorry, I'm looking at October. I beg your pardon.
Okay.
So, yes, November the 2nd, I beg your pardon. You did hold up a sign, pregnant, question mark, need help, question mark. Did any member of the public approach you for conversation on that occasion?
No, there was a day of some hurricane, some name. It was a weather warning. The school was even closed. And my prayer companion warned me that she lives far away and said, I cannot come. And I decided, okay, no, I will go. And it's my stubbornness, maybe. And it was rainy, windy, and nobody was around except the three officers who came and talked to me. So it was interesting in that sense.
Thank you. You said that earlier that you've had lots of support. Do you do social media at all?
No,
You don't.
no.
Okay.
It's through the crowdfunding that I had many comments, and I organized my group through Telegram. I don't know if that is considered a social media or not, but I don't do social medias. It's interactions with people as well, direct interactions with people.
Have you had any support from your church?
My church, yeah, it's interesting because we didn't have a priest for a long time due to illness, and at the moment we don't have still my diocese hasn't got a bishop. But the current priest is very supportive and praying for the 40 Days for Life activity, and he wants to do more. And it's interesting you're saying the support of churches, because here in Bournemouth we are trying, especially Amabel, one of my prayer companions, and is very passionate about this, involving churches. And we had in May a mini conference, Our Churches and Human Rights, here in Bournemouth, with also Julie Vivienne, is another strong lady who believes in this. And so we are trying to involve more churches. I'm going to visit also in 2 Sundays another church, and whoever is welcoming. We are trying to establish more this network of all the Christian denominations.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Sorry, any questions from members of the panel? Does anyone want to ask any further questions? I see nods of the head. No. Okay. Would
And
you?
actually, support of the church, I must say, important, very heartwarming. The Bishop of Portsmouth asked for a meeting. I had it 2 weeks ago, 10 days ago, something like that. And
Was that supportive, that
very,
meeting?
very, very,
It's
very.
very good to hear.
Yes.
In closing, would you like to say any comments, things that perhaps haven't been covered, or points of clarity? Livia, would you like to say anything?
Oh dear. They will come when we close this conversation. So with, I don't think so.
You don't think so? Okay.
Okay.
Well, I'd like to thank you, Livia, for giving your time. We really appreciate it. And I'd like to thank all the members of the panel and Edmund Adamus, the Secretary to the Commission of Inquiry. Thank you so much for your time, everyone. Thank you.
Okay.